All right, good afternoon. I hope everyone can hear me. This is Taking Flight Through COVID-19, Parallel Plans for Internships. I want to thank you all for being with us this afternoon. My name is Liz Seeger. I'm Associate Director in Career Services. I have a co-host, Matthew Little. He is Assistant Director and Career Advisor for School of Business Administration, and he's going to help me with some navigation and the chat room and questions and any technology snafus that I run into. So I'm so glad you're here. We're going to go ahead and get started. First, I'm going to go ahead and review our agenda. We're going to talk a little bit about the webinar ground rules, a little bit about what your mindset is right now after a long time in stay at home and transitioning to online learning, and it's finals week. And then we'll talk a little bit about if you're still searching for internships. And then the parallel plans for internship will really sit in the Invest in You section. And I'm going to present for about 20-25 minutes, and then we'll leave things open for a question and answer. And you can use the chat function to ask questions, but when I'm done presenting, you can also unmute yourself, and we can even have a dialogue. We're a fairly small intimate group when we do that, so keep that in mind. So let's go over our ground rules first. First of all, some of you who do have your video on, do remember that you do have your video on, and that we can all see each other. And just remember, this is a webinar. It is a professional type of environment, so make sure you're engaged. And if you have interruptions, make sure that you black out your screen. And if you are visible, that you want to put your best face forward in a professional way. So if you put the laptop down on the sofa and it goes up and we see the curtains, you know, you might want to correct that before you walk away. Do stay on mute. It's a little distracting to all that are listening if we do hear your background noise, and if someone comes in and needs something from you, remember you are on mute, and check it if you engage in a different type of conversation. We did talk about how to ask questions and use the chat function. And then I'm going to ask that we all practice grace. I'm going to be perfectly honest with all of you. This is only my second webinar, and it's my first recorded webinar. So just be a little patient as we navigate through the technology. Sometimes it might take me a minute to find my way. I'm going to flip back and forth between a number of slides. And that will take me a few minutes, or create kind of an awkward silence or an awkward pause if I have to do that. And then just be courteous of others who, if they're speaking, especially during the Q&A, give them a chance to speak and kind of watch what's going on and listen, so that we're not talking on top of each other. Lastly, I am a little bit of a note-dependent type of presenter, so while I'm trying to stay engaged with my camera and look at you, I do have notes off to my left, and I am going to consult those from time to time and move them forward to make sure that I'm sharing all the information that I need to share with you. All right. Oh, and lastly, you will receive a copy of the PowerPoint, and you will get a copy of this webinar, and the webinar will also be available on our website as we continue to build this series. All right, let's talk about your mindset right now. So Matt discussed this mindset in his full-time and internship job search webinar that he did last week for us, and I just want to revisit this very briefly with you. You know, as your summer progresses, what I really want to honor with you is that sometimes if you move into that not helpful list, it's really okay, because this is very much a struggle for a lot of us, and I want to honor how we're feeling. Move into that space, hang out in the not helpful space, process your feelings, but I want to encourage you to try to, once you're done processing, to try to move back into that helpful space, especially as you do start to consider what are your parallel plans after, in case you don't get an internship, or just your plans completely changed than what you expected them to be over the summer. To be flexible and adaptable and be really open-minded, because when we're open-minded, man, sometimes new and interesting opportunities wander across our path that we never thought were going to present themselves to us, and it ends up being a really fortunate opportunity. All right. we're talking about being in that not helpful to helpful place. So one of our goals of doing parallel plans for internships is really to help you continue to engage in experiential learning throughout the summer. So really, I know you've heard this 1,000 times, but it's really, how do you maximize your time while we continue to do social distancing? The other thing that I want to address is that many of you are concerned that you won't be strong candidates for future opportunities because your plans did change for the summer. And I want you to know that we had a lot of conversations with employers. We've had great town hall meetings with them. And their feedback is they 110% understand what you are going through, and that your plans have been changed or altered in some way, shape, or form. And when they look at resumes from this time period or ask you interview questions, they absolutely know that things didn't work out the way that you thought that they were going to. But what they will be looking for, so they won't be expecting these great experiences, but they will be expecting something. So you'll get that question probably a lot. What did you do during the summer of 2020 and even into the fall of 2020 during this particular time that none of us has ever lived through before? And what we're hoping is that you're going to be able to answer this question and say that you did some professional development and some personal development, and maybe you did find a virtual internship. But the answer should not be, well, I spent a lot of time in my backyard working on my tan, and then at night I came in and I spent a lot of time on Fortnite. Okay, so this is an opportunity to have some different types of experiences. So we want to help you definitely answer that question. We also want you to be able to develop your skills and definitely do some growing professionally and personally. All right, so our next topic for parallel planning is, the first thing I want to address is you all may still be searching for internships, and I think that that is still very, very excellent. Keep doing what you're doing. In a short period of time, couple of days or so, you're going to be able to access our second webinar that Matt did, which is that full-time and internship job search webinar. And I definitely recommend that if you weren't on the webinar to go back and watch it, because they're great tips for you to definitely access. So I just want to talk about what's out there right now very briefly. You're seeing a lot of words about virtual and micro internships being available. And what we're finding is there's not a ton of websites that are dedicated specifically to virtual and micro internships. But as you work with regular job boards to be able to do keyword searching using the word virtual or remote, or today I found micro intern come up, that's the way that you should be able to continue to start to find various opportunities become available to you. And I'm going to click ahead for just a second and show you some resources. So I have lots of resources on this PowerPoint. And as we're talking, if you want them, Matt has the presentation. He can capture the link and put it in the chat. But remember, I will also give you a copy of this so that you'll be able to capture all of these links on your own. So as I mentioned, you know, internships.com is doing some really good work in developing and pulling in these remote and virtual internships. I bring up an organization called UpKey, which is creating remote internships for about 8 weeks for students with a stipend. It is an application process, though. There's about 1,000 positions available, and you have to apply by May 8th, but I wanted to give that a little plug today here in our webinar. For the micro internship space, we talk a lot about Parker Dewey. They initially they were a site that was very much geared toward the MBA crowd, but I encourage you to continue to work with them, especially over the next month or two, because we do have a need for micro internships. You're going to start to see more and more get posted on that website, and it's going to become more popular. Let me just consult my notes and make sure that I shared everything that I need to share with you in terms of these. Okay, so we're good with our virtual and our micro internships. The other thing that I want to talk a little bit about is, and As businesses start to open up again, which, as you know, we're starting to see that happen, just be very cautious and only do what you feel safe doing. But you may have an opportunity to create your own internship. And one of the ways to do this is I would encourage you to, you can contact Fortune 50 or Fortune 500 companies, but small businesses and nonprofits have been hit particularly hard, and they're very, very overwhelmed. So they might not even know what they need in terms of help. And with a little preparation on your part, you might be able to approach the nonprofits and the small businesses and see if you can create an internship with yourself. And here's some things that you need to remember in that regard, which is you have to kind of figure out what it is that you need to offer, what it is that you can offer them. So first of all, you have to figure out, well, how am I going to identify them? And I would recommend just search local business directories and Chamber of Commerce sites in order to identify small businesses. And idealist.org is an excellent site for identifying nonprofits within your geographic region. Do an assessment of your skills. First, figure out what do I have to offer these organizations that are just coming back online. So if you're an accounting or finance major, someone might need some help just realigning the books and finding new budget and getting things in order. Start there. If you're more of a marketing person and creative, it might be doing some social media marketing campaigns, helping them create a website, doing some flyers, some branding, that type of thing. But be prepared to offer something. And I've given you some suggested dialogue. I'm not going to read it to you because I really try not to read the PowerPoint slides, but here's some suggested dialogue that you can use to start a conversation or an email or an outreach in LinkedIn with a business owner. I think the hardest thing here about the small business dynamics is these businesses and nonprofits may not have the budget to pay you, which means don't offer yourself up 40 hours a week. Say that maybe you can work 10 to 15 hours a week unpaid. That leaves the balance of the week available for you to do some paid work. Again, whatever you're comfortable with in terms of being out and about, whether it's serving or childcare or tutoring or landscaping, and that will allow you to earn some money throughout the balance of the summer. Okay, so that's one tactic to help you with that particular process. I'm going to scoot back up here. Okay. And then lastly, I just want to talk briefly about part-time and summer jobs, because there's a lot of businesses out there today that sometimes they don't put their job postings in the context of internships, and sometimes they'll just post part-time and summer jobs. Make that part of your search from time to time. Are you definitely going to end up seeing true part-time and summer jobs? Yes, you will. But at the same time, you might find some gems in there that will lead to you building your resume and capturing some really good skills. Speaking of skills, if it does end up being a true part-time or summer job, I want you to remember work is work. And any opportunity that you have to build communication skills and problem solving and teamwork and some leadership and some management, it doesn't matter where it comes from. It's all in how you embrace the experience and really work on developing your skills, that this is all going to be viable information that put on your resume, to talk about in interviews, and to help you get to your next goal and your next step in life. So I definitely encourage you to keep that on your radar just a little bit. Okay. So that's the information I have for you if you're still searching, and just some alternative ways to approach it. I'm going to move next into, okay, you're doing this parallel planning, you're thinking about it, the internship search is looking like you may not get the position that you were hoping for, so you need some parallel planning. Okay. So first thing I want to say is a lot of students ask us, when should I stop looking for an internship? And you know, that's a really hard question. Even in normal situations, it's an even harder answer in the middle of a pandemic. My suggestion is continue to do a search for internship through May and even through June. You're kind of noticing by the end of June that things just aren't happening. this is when you want to start moving into your parallel planning. And I don't mean do your parallel planning starting in July. I would say keep searching for an internship and do your parallel planning starting now, so that you can even do some of those activities during this time period after finals when you have a little bit of a lull, and have some things ready to go if you discover that you're not going to get that internship or that work experience that you were hoping to get. So that's my comments on the timing of what hopefully will work for you. So I've broken this down into 3 different areas. We have career assessment and planning, we have design your summer, and then just kind of some fun things for personal development and self-care, which I think are really important. And all of these, again, at the end of the day, I'm a huge skills person. If you've seen me present, you know if it's helping you build both your skills and yourself professionally and personally, it's all viable and very, very good, and very good to talk to employers about. First, we're going to talk about career assessment and planning. So this is a really good time. Again, take a break after finals. I want to acknowledge that this is finals week, but this is a wonderful time for you to do some career assessments and some career planning. I'm going to tell you that I was working with a student about 2 weeks ago, and we were talking about taking some assessments and doing some research. And I said, you know, you kind of have time to do that right now. And he gave me a side-eye smile like, yeah, I know. So it's always good to maximize your time in this particular space. So my suggestion would be do a career assessment. If you're still kind of in that, I've got a major or I don't have a major, but I need some direction. Using our Focus 2 assessment can be extremely helpful. It's self-guided, which means that you get your results immediately, and you can start looking at those results and sorting through them. You can also make an appointment with a career advisor here in our office. We will work through Zoom or on the phone, and we can review that focus assessment and those results with you at any time. You can take the Myers-Briggs type indicator. You do need an appointment with a career advisor to take that assessment, but we'll make sure that we get you set up to do that. And that's another way that you can do some good assessment of some of the things that you're starting to explore. I would also recommend what can I do with this major, which is another way. You've got a major, you love it, it's time to start linking it to career and occupational information. And then a great time to look at just occupational information and job descriptions. Go out on job boards, look at various job descriptions within industries and positions that you're interested in. Kind of start noting what the skills are, what are needed, and if in fact interests you. The ONET site is also pretty amazing for doing occupational research. It's very, very comprehensive in terms of skills and can you get a job and how much money can you make. And then of course there's schedule an appointment with a career advisor. Now I've just yacked at you about that, but here are all your links and resources for this information: how to get to focus, make an appointment with a career advisor, how to find what can I do with this major, the ONET site, and then using Handshake to schedule an appointment with a career advisor. If we move into your career planning space, lots of stuff to do in this space. Oh my gosh, you're probably tired of listening to us say some of the things that you have to do or you can do in terms of your career planning. So I'm just going to review a few of these with you. Definitely create or update your LinkedIn profile. Schedule a 30-minute appointment with a career advisor to review that profile once it's up and running. I think that's a great thing to get done this summer. Practice virtual interviewing skills. Oh my gosh, we're living in a virtual world right now, and if you're just kind of not comfortable in this space, you can either do a mock interview with a career advisor through Zoom, or you can use our big interview tool, which allows you to set up an account and practice videotaping how you're responding to questions and then critiquing really as much as you need to. I would definitely say do some research on industries and organizations to start building target lists. This is a great activity, especially if you're looking to maybe trying to get an internship for fall of 2020, or even folks advanced planning for spring and summer of 2021. Get that work done now. Then we talked about networking through LinkedIn. As you start to figure out what type of occupations, industries are you interested in, use your LinkedIn profile to start identifying contacts that are within that same career field and industry that you're interested in, and start reaching out and making connections. Informational interviewing. Be careful with informational interviewing. Our employers are reporting to us that they're feeling very overwhelmed. If you ask to speak to them for up to an hour, they most likely will say no because they just don't have the time. But you can ask some pretty powerful questions within a 15 to 20-minute time period and get some really quick career information from them. And they'll be more open to saying yes to you if you make the time a little bit shorter. And then down at the bottom, I'll skip to the bottom, definitely start researching for graduate school. Here's your resources here. If you're thinking about it, start thinking about what career do you want to pursue? Do you need a graduate degree? This is a really good time for you to take graduate admissions testing. You've got the time to do the studying. Take the test this summer. For most fields and tests, the scores are good for up to 5 years. So this might be something that you would like to get out of your way now. That link at the bottom for graduate school, that goes to our website, and you'll find resources on researching programs, all of the admissions tests that you need, and how to start narrowing down your programs and making some decisions. Here are a number of resources for you. The one thing I want to point out is two things. The informational interview, that is to the Career Services website. That is going to be a site that's going to help you construct a really nice way. How do I approach someone, and how do I ask intelligent questions? So again, you are prepared when you have this experience. The other thing for networking that I want to point out in making connections is using that flyer connection. So this is a pretty amazing tool. We have a whole bunch of UD alumni that are either interested in, going into the fall, having mentoring opportunities with our current students, or doing what we like to call flash mentoring. Now this will really pick up in the fall, but it's just if you want to ask someone a really quick question, that resource is available for you to get into the database and see if you can connect with an alumni to ask those really, really quick questions. All right, so that is step number one in parallel planning, is that opportunity to spend some time doing some assessment and some career planning. Now this gets a little bit more flexible. So I call this design your summer. Now you're probably looking at the first two and going, take UD summer online classes and invent your own curriculum, and you're thinking, oh dear God, kill me. I cannot do any more online learning. So I completely understand that. At the same time, what I'm hoping is you all were kind of forced into your classes being held online. After finals, take a break for a week or two. When you can re-engage with some online learning on your own terms and of your own choosing, this is what I'm hoping you'll have a little bit of a better perspective on online. I know it's hard. I'm not an online learner myself, but actually in doing research for this presentation, oh my gosh, there's so many things that I want to dig into now after I found some great resources. So I strongly, strongly recommend that you take a look at what UD is offering in terms of online courses, get a little bit ahead in your curriculum, or take something interesting that sort of augments or complements what you're currently studying. It's a reduced tuition rate for the summer per credit hour. I believe it's like a 46% discount on tuition this summer, so definitely take advantage of some of those opportunities. But the fun stuff is when you kind of decide, do I want to learn something else and gain some new skills that could be marketable, that a graduate school, an employer, an on-campus employer might be interested in, that I did over the summer. So you might look at certification programs, getting new technical skills, or even creating your own related research projects. So this is kind of becoming a thing. There's a subject you really want to dig into. It's a little bit more in depth. So you create your own research project in relation to that particular interest. The other thing is create your own personal website or start an e-portfolio. It represents you. Who are you? What are you doing? Show some of samples of your work, if whatever that might be. So I have some resources on the next slide that will show you that there are sites that help you host developing e-portfolios that kind of represent everything that you have done up to this point that you want others to see. Technical skills, lots of great technical skills to capture out there. You might decide you want to learn a new language, and I know you've heard this 1,000 times, but learning to code is becoming a really big thing, something that's definitely out there. And then you could do tutoring online. So if you like to teach, tutor younger or your fellow students. Eventually, when we normalize, that might shift to more face-to-face type tutoring. And of course, volunteering falls into this category as well. As we start to open up and we're not under such a strict stay-at-home order, you may want to spend the balance of your summer doing some volunteering in whatever types of environments you feel comfortable with. So here are your resources. Okay, so go through Isidore to look at what UD's offering in terms of summer courses. Lots of free, so everything you see here in the online learning category is free. I know through Corsica, there's a great thing being offered by Yale University right now called, I believe it's called The Science of Well-Being, and apparently it's a very popular course, and Corsica is offering it right now, and it just sounds really, of course I'm a geek, but that sounds really fascinating. So lots of things for you to choose from. That Stanford Online, they have online courses and you have to pay for them, but this is the portal where it's called free content. And then next down, your websites and your e-portfolios. These are, that folio space is free. Google Sites also offers both website and portfolio type management systems. There's a little link that I snuck in there. It's, you can see it, it says St. Olaf. So this is a really cool site. This is a small liberal arts college in Minnesota, and their Center for Integrated Studies has their students do portfolios, e-portfolios in their senior year, and they're so good and so interesting. I advise you to take a look at these and maybe develop your own portfolio off of what you're seeing in that content. And then Wix.com is a free website hosting site. Duolingo is a free language site. Code Academy is also free if you want to do coding. And then idealist.org again for volunteering. We're putting together a service panel for students on May 20th, I think at 3 o'clock. You'll see thumbs up. Yeah, okay. So, and one of our participants is called St. Joseph Worker Program. They actually are looking for individuals to volunteer right now, and you do not need to be graduated and you do not need to have your bachelor's degree just yet in order to engage with them. They have multiple sites. They're out of Minnesota, but they have multiple sites around the country, so you may want to take a look at them if you'd like to engage in some volunteering. Okay, so that there's just so many different ways that you can design your summer. And that's just, I feel like I just kind of scratched the surface on that one. But then next is you have to take care of you. So this goes back into mindset just a little bit. And yep, I know you've heard a lot of this stuff before, but it's all really good. I know my colleagues and I are even doing some of these in terms of our personal development and self-care. So just some ideas. You may already be doing them. So everybody's kind of into physical fitness. Train for a marathon, take up yoga, learn martial arts. I found this really cool website about how to learn how to dance and explore all the different styles. Learn some new skills that are sort of meditative and at the same time restorative. So anything in the arts, drawing and doodling and painting and photography, knitting and crocheting, and I've discovered puzzles, and actually I'm a group of 4 or 5 people now that we're sharing our puzzles. We're sending them to each other and trading off. So it's great kind of a meditative activity. And cooking, oh my gosh. really anything that interests you. So here's some kind of cool websites. So there's Fitness Blender on .com. They're on YouTube. Yoga with Adriene is also really popular. Here's this Learn to Dance, which I like quite a bit. And then Skillshare for the arts, and it's writing, it's photography, it's doodling. Oh my gosh, all kinds of crazy and interesting things. And then Tasty is wonderful for learning how to cook. So just stuff that kind of develops your skills a little bit more. And I think it's perfectly okay. Maybe you did do a couple of online courses or created your own curriculum, but when you're talking to an employer, it's okay to say, and you know, I watched about 5 different cooking videos and learned how to make 5 basic dishes, and now I can cook a little bit better than I could before all of this happened. People will, and employers will really appreciate that type of a conversation, trust me, because they're going to see that you expanded your horizons in a lot of different ways. I'm just going to tell you something a little funny about the personal development and self-care. When I was looking at my own resources, one of the things that came up was puppeteering. I was like, well, that's interesting. Puppeteering is kind of, so I was going to look for an image to put on this slide. I warn you, do not put puppeteering in Google Images, because the creepiest things will come, I mean, scary stuff will come up. Oh, and I did not know that. So I took puppeteering off of this list because it was just too scary. So, okay, that was just my moment of levity, okay? Remember that what you're doing, it's really gonna enrich you personally, and you're gonna have a good time doing it. Okay, reflect on and track your experiences within this process, because this is how you're going to be able to talk about the experiences that you had this summer with employers, and eventually maybe you're going to put some of this information on your resume a little bit, or talk about in interviews. So what I want to advise you is, as whether it's career assessment and career planning down to designing your own curriculum, learning a new skill, or doing something personally, track what you're learning. So whether it's you track things by opening the notes function on your phone, you like to open up a Word document and do some typing, or you're like me and you like old-fashioned pen and paper and you write things out. Whenever you find something or you're engaged in something that you realize you're enjoying it, pay attention to what's getting is resonating for you, and write it down and record it. Because eventually, after a month or 2 or 3, you're going to have a collection of really interesting pieces of information, and you'll be able to look for patterns and themes. What did you discover? What skills did you build? How did this enrich you? How will you be able to reflect on it? All of that will emerge very easily for you. And come May 27th, we'll have our final webinar in this series, and it's called Marketing Your Summer and Fall Experiences. So based on what we're talking about today, we're going to talk to you about how can you answer interview questions based on what you did this summer, and how can you represent these experiences on your resume and on LinkedIn. So it all kind of ties together. So make sure that you are tracking, because you'll have an opportunity to do that. The last thing that I want to say to you just about reflecting is, I presented 3 different ways that you can do your parallel planning. And as you're trying to decide what is the right thing for you, what I would like you to think about is, where does vocation and purpose come into what you're doing this summer? Now, when we talk about vocation and purpose, it's a very, very large concept, and it's a little hard for you to get your hands around. What I want to advise you to do is remember that when we talk about vocation and purpose, it can be for long-range planning, but it can also be for where you are right now in this moment. Right now in this moment, next week, a month from now, 2 months from now, and who you are and what role you're fulfilling as a student, as a son, a daughter, a sibling, a partner, a friend. Kind of determine, what is my purpose in this space right now, and then let that guide the decisions that you make in terms of that personal care and development, that career assessment and planning, and designing your own summer. So give that a little bit of thought as well. Okay. So we are to the, well, it was a little bit more than 20 minutes. I'm sorry about that. I think we're struggling to be short in our webinars, but hopefully you all appreciate that. I just want to remind you before we open it up for Q&A that our series, we have 3 more workshops coming up, one on networking on May 13th, the power of handshake on the 19th. That's me. I promise I'll do better with the technology. And then on the 27th, we have Marketing Your Summer and Fall 2020 Experiences. These events can be found under Career Services events, or you can register through them on events through your Handshake account. And now I'm going to see, Matt, if we have any questions that need to be answered or anyone that wants to speak up.
Yes, absolutely. If anyone does have a question for Liz, or a question just in general about this topic or others, feel free to share. You can enter your questions into the chat box and I'll be sure to share them with Liz and everyone else. Okay, so Liz, one question is, if I do reach out to one of those small businesses that you had mentioned, or I reach out to a company or an organization that interests me, on your slide, you talked about how you could reach out and say, is there any way that we could create an opportunity, maybe 10 to 15 hours a week unpaid? Is it okay to ask for paid instead? Is it okay to start there and ask to see if they have the resources to pay for those experiences, or should we only be trying to create our own opportunities if we offer them as unpaid?
I think it's perfectly okay to if you can create a paid internship for yourself. Always start with what you can offer the employer first. Let that question about could this internship be paid come later in the conversation. And if the answer is no, then if the answer is no, I think you need to be prepared to sort of stick with it, because what if the employer says, oh my God, yes, I could desperately use some help and we just identified where, and then you say, that's wonderful, would you be able to pay me, $10 an hour? And they say, no, I don't have any money. You in your head need to be prepared to say, that's okay, I thought I would ask, but I'd still like to do the work. Okay, so if you feel like you can't work unpaid, then I wouldn't go down that road. Okay. But it is okay to ask once you have presented what you can do for that employer.
Okay.
Okay, does that make sense?
Yes, I definitely think that it helps clarify.
Okay.
Liz, another question is, if I do something more non-traditional outside of an internship, if it is taking classes or pursuing one of the other paths that you mentioned, how would I put that on my resume?
Well, that's actually what we're going to talk about on May 27th. Okay. Is how to format that on the resume, where does it belong, how to talk about it. So for now, just go back to, if you have one of those more non-traditional experiences, constantly be on the alert for what are you doing and what skills are you building, because that's what's going to build that part of your resume very nicely and sort of fit with the rest of the format, because it's going to be very skills focused. And if you accomplish something, definitely work those accomplishment statements too, because those also will fit nicely into how the resumes are formatted.
Great. Okay, great. Any other questions, anybody?
Hi, I have a question.
Sure. Kevin?
Go for it, Kevin.
So I've been trying to contact businesses in the same way you explained, like trying to create your own internship. And I was wondering how I should contact them. Would calling them be better? I feel like since I'm a freshman, I'm not wanted as much, and so I'm really trying to find a way to make people to be marketable.
Mm-hmm. So Kevin, are you primarily emailing business owners?
I was emailing some. I got a response today when I called them, and so it was for a bookkeeping position because I'm an accounting student, and they said, yeah, email your resume, and I think they they haven't responded. I think it's because they realize I'm a rising sophomore.
Okay.
So I guess a little bit of both.
Okay. And, I think, and anybody weigh in here, I think you're on the right track because you started with emailing and the response rate was somewhat low, but then you made a phone call and actually got someone on the phone and they were willing to look at your resume.
Hmm.
You may try phone calling just a little bit more to see if you're going to get a better response rate, but continue to do a combination of both. I believe that one of the things that you're encountering is that businesses are extremely overwhelmed right now. So while they are, we've been saying this since March, I think that they are starting to figure stuff out, but they may still need a little bit more time to get there. That's why I'm always encouraging, if you are still looking for an internship, do it through the month of May and even do it through the beginning of June, because businesses, especially as they reopen, they will start to figure some stuff out and you may start to get a better response rate. But I welcome any feedback from any of my colleagues.
I agree with Liz, Kevin. I think she gave you great advice. One of the things I always share is the term pleasant persistence. You stay pleasantly persistent in your follow-up. You called and it worked, just like Liz noted, and they have your resume now. I would be careful not to assume the worst. If you're not hearing back, I would not assume, oh, they must realize that I'm a rising sophomore and they don't want me now. You have to believe in yourself, and that's going to come through. So I would, I'd give it a week, and if they don't get back, just like Liz said, they're probably overwhelmed. So a second call, just a quick check-in. Hi, it's Kevin. I'm following up. Just wanted to reiterate that I'm willing to do anything to help you this summer, paid or unpaid, for however much time you need me. Just very interested and hope to hear from you soon. So I would just stay persistent and following up once a week. Be pleasant about it until they say, no, sorry, Kevin, there's just nothing here. I would try to stay on their radar because we know how great you are, and we just need them to see that as well.
Thank you.
Great questions. Anybody else would like to chime in with a personal question? Okay, Liz, I don't see anything else coming through in the chat box or anybody chiming in from their video. So I think you are good to go.
Okay. All right, everyone. Well, thanks for joining us, and give us just a little bit of time and we will upload this webinar onto our website so that you can revisit it anytime you need to. And you're a fairly small group, so I am going to share a student version of the PowerPoint with you as well, so you have all of the resources. All right, so good luck, everyone. Let us know if you need anything. We are here in Career Services available to help you through advising appointments or anything else that you need. And continue to watch our events page. We've got some good panels and additional webinars coming up as we go through the summer. Okay. All right, bye, everyone.
Thanks, Liz.
Thank you.